let me do my intro because I'm so excited. There are a decent amount of athletes who dare share their political knowledge to the public due to fear that their owner might punish them. Not our next guest. In fact, not only has Justin Jackson thrown his political opinions into the ring, but many independent media figures consider his ideology to be one of the most nuanced out there. Just a couple months ago, Justin Jackson's tweet prompted AOC of the squad to push back on his support for the hashtag Force the Vote movement, a movement in which progressives in Congress would withhold their vote from Nancy Pelosi's speaker position unless she agreed to bring Medicare for All to the floor for a vote. But she did not. Joining us today is the former Northwestern running back and current LA Charger, who netted me a big win this midseason in my fantasy football league. Justin Jackson's here. How you doing, Justin?
How's it going, y'all? Thanks for having me on. I'm glad I could help you. I'm glad I could help.
I know Fiorella and John said that they laughed because Justin's going to like that and stuff. And it's when Eckler went down and you really ran the rock and stuff. And, I don't want to get too much into football, but I'm like, man, Justin Jackson is a great receiver. He's smart. He knows how to run routes. He's got to get with a team that can really use that receiving out of the backfield. I don't think they throw the ball to you enough, and I hope they do that next year a little bit more. So
yeah, I think I actually talked to our new head coach recently, and he mentioned the same thing. So I'm glad that you might be in line to be a NFL head coach with the way you're thinking.
Yeah. No. Well, listen, Justin, I mean, let me tell you this right now.
He watches enough football. So.
Yeah, I mean, let me tell you something. This is a very, I've been wanting to have you on for a while, and I think the timing is amazing because I watched your podcast yesterday, and I was like, oh, my Lord. You know what I'm saying? I think about guys like Michael Bennett who've been politically involved and somewhat nuanced, but you're on another level over here, and you're talking some certain truth that a lot of people won't dare to talk, especially a lot of football players in today's kind of climate. But let's talk a little bit. Let's just jump right into this whole thing because I am super excited, and we're going to put you under the microscope over here. We're going to hit you with some hard questions today. But thank you so much for joining us here. And just we'll tell everybody at the end about your podcast. We'll get to everything. Okay. So Justin, let's just jump right into it. You said the Medicare for All movement was important to you because you lost your mother at a very young age due to breast cancer. However, listening to your podcast yesterday and reading a lot of your tweets, your political knowledge is broad. What propelled you to get deeper into politics? That's what I'm wondering.
It was really the 2016 election. And so I went to, like you said, I went to Northwestern. So in 2016, I was 20. I was a junior in college. And, Northwestern is a very, liberal, elite liberal institution. And so just around the campus, there was a lot of people talking. Obviously, it was Clinton versus Trump. It was people were actually, and even myself, I grew up in a pretty liberal household, but we never talked about politics. And so that was kind of the first time I was politics was almost thrust in front of my face. And so I started just doing more research on it. And obviously I kind of knew that I didn't want Trump. And even in my political ignorance, I knew I didn't want Trump because, everything he was saying and everything he stood for, all these things. I'm like, okay, I don't want Trump. Do I want Clinton? And I'm like, I don't really know much about Clinton, but something that is very pervasive in the Black community, which is something that I hope to usher change in, was that a lot of people think of the Clintons and Bill Clinton in a positive light in the Black community, which is super upsetting, obviously, because he was one of the worst presidents for Black people that we almost, definitely in my lifetime or in most of our lifetimes. So I wanted to do more research on that, and I was watching cable news, I think, and I wasn't learning anything. They were just talking about Trump 24/7, his tweets, what he was saying, all type of stuff. So I felt like if I actually wanted to contribute anything, change people's minds, whatever, I actually need to get more knowledgeable on politics coming from a place of political ignorance. So that's when I kind of started finding independent left news sources on YouTube. And that was kind of my first introduction into the left political space, was in 2016.
Yeah. Did you have a favorite, by the way?
I watched TYT. I watched Secular Talk. I watched Jimmy Dore was on TYT. He did the Aggressive Progressives. Man, I'm dating myself. I think I started reading some newspapers like Jacobin, I think at the time, and maybe The Nation, or just some more independent news sources as well. Yeah, so man, that seems like so long ago, but
it's funny because
The Intercept,
it's funny because those were all the ones I watched too in 2015 and 2016, and God, now so much has changed. It's just that's all
Yeah.
I'm gonna say on that one. Although I still love Jimmy Dore, but it's just so much has changed. It's like we're radicalizing. I guess that's a bad word now. Radicalizing
Right.
at such a fast level, but you criticize the squad for force the vote, and I'm not gonna focus on force the vote, but how do you see the squad as a whole fitting in the sphere of this climate? And do you think it's worth supporting progressives to run as Democrats? Because it seems like it hasn't worked in our favor in the most recent times.
Yeah, that's a super tough question, and I don't like to speak in absolutes because I'm not going to sit here and act like I know everything. I don't, and I know what I see, and I read a lot, and I try and be very knowledgeable on these topics. What I see from the squad is policy-wise, most of the time, not all the time, and I think that's something that a lot of people still won't admit, is that especially when it comes to like foreign policy and stuff like that, there's places where I don't agree with the squad, and there's places where the squad, they don't even agree with each other, so I think that's something where policy-wise, most of the stuff we agree on, like Medicare for All, Green New Deal, public college, all that, great. I think where we have a huge disagreement, and even amongst the left, I think there's a disagreement, is the strategy. For me, I truly don't believe, and I think it's empirically known, that you can just work within the Democratic Party behind the scenes, playing the political game. Like that's never going to net you the outcome that you think it will or that you want it to. Why? Because you're playing the game within a system that's completely rigged for the establishment. So there's no way you can actually play that game within that system and be better at that game than the people who are also playing the game but actually have positions of power where they can do stuff like keep AOC off of a committee seat or kick Katie Porter off her committee, where, I mean, she was probably the best one on that committee. So my theory of change, I think some of other people's theory of change, is if you do think you're going to be within the Democratic Party and work within that framework, well, then you have to not just be happy about having a seat at the table. No, you have to flip the table over, right?
Yeah.
That's what Trump did in the GOP primary, in the
Right.
GOP in the Republican Party. He flipped the table over. He changed the game. He became the party. But what did he use? He used the people. He used the base, who was very angry and upset with the establishment and was ready and ripe for change. He took that. He took all that anger, and he obviously, I mean, he's the best con man probably ever. I mean, he made it to the presidency. So he took that, he used it for his advantage, and he won the nomination. My theory is that there's a lot of people in the Democratic Party or on the left, broad left, who also are ripe for change, or people who don't vote, who should be in the Democratic Party if they're actually support working people, right? You can actually get those people, but you have to show them that there's a contrast between you and the establishment figures of the Democratic Party. If you're just going to toe the line and be a part of the party, well, then a lot of those people are probably just going to see you as the same as Nancy Pelosi, when you're not. And if you're not the same as Nancy Pelosi, then you have to actually show that contrast.
Yeah.
And I will say, I have been seeing them, at least in the past few days, speak out about Joe Biden and some of the people in the Democratic Party, which they really haven't done up until this point. So hopefully that can continue. Hopefully they are maybe starting to get a little more frustrated and start to actually speak out and withhold their vote and actually, perform and act as a coalition. But that remains to be seen.
Yeah, I mean, it's sometimes, though, it feels like when people speak out against Joe Biden, it's really easy to speak out against Joe Biden, but to actually challenge Pelosi on legislation, that's where I have a problem with it. It's really easy to tweet. It's really easy to say all these things, but actions are what I think the American people are wanting more than ever right now, right? So like it's just it's hard to say, and I think if it's all theater or if it's like they're actually going to do something, because I mean we're hitting a breaking point right now where it doesn't seem like we're getting anywhere fast enough for the working class of this country that's pretty much just so downtrodden and just so like there's really few solutions other than literally giving people a stimulus, giving people health care, and Joe Biden literally denied what he ran on. He ran on the $2,000 and he ran on student loan forgiveness for up to $50,000, and he backtracked from all of that, and he's gutting Medicare. So if you're not 100% opposing that and using your leverage as somebody that has 10 million followers on Twitter, what are you doing, right?
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think the left, especially the progressives in Congress, they almost neuter themselves as if they don't have power. One, they have more power than ever now because of the slim House majority. So they have literally more institutional power than the left has had since, I don't know, probably when they were actually real socialists still in the country, in government. But they, like you said, they have a very large public following, and they can actually enact change and use that public following to call for strikes, to call for different movements, to call for pressuring. Like you saw with impeachment, they actually moved the party on impeachment, because when that first came, like all that stuff first came out, Pelosi and them were saying, like, I think they were talking about censoring or some of that stuff, and they were like, all the progressives were like, no, we need to impeach him. Here's your representatives. Make sure you're calling them so that we can get him impeached. And then like a few days later, Nancy Pelosi was like, all right, we're going to impeach him. They actually moved her and the party on that, right? But if it's something that is not, the party doesn't, I mean, that's not really going to lose the party any points. It's not going to lose the donor base any points or, anything like that. So are you willing to do that same thing for something like Medicare for All, something like student debt cancellation? Are you willing to do that and actually move the party to your position when it's something that the party, obviously the establishment of the party, does not want? Yeah. That remains to be seen.
It's funny because AOC's, what people were telling about forced to vote, it's like, well, we have to get these Democratic progressives on record on this vote, whatnot. She's like, well, look at the co-sponsor list. But then she used the same argument with Donald Trump about the impeachment. It's like, well, it's not going to happen. She's like, it doesn't matter. We have to get people on the record for this vote. It was like, hello, you just exposed yourself. So, I mean, it's so ironic. The irony meter went really high on that one. So,
yeah, no, for sure. I think that's a huge double standard. And I think it was very bad timing on her part. But I think it just shows that really within the DC bubble, if you're not pressuring your politicians, they are politicians. They're going to bend the pressure. And so if the left is not pressuring them, they're getting pressured from the right within their party and the right in general. And I think she and the other squad members have fell kind of victim to being like their mind kind of being warped by that DC bubble and by all the right-wing attacks. And so I think they identify a lot more with Nancy Pelosi, with Hakeem Jeffries, with these establishment figures of the Democratic Party, obviously, than they do with someone like Ted Cruz or Josh Hawley, right? But we need you as a progressive base and the electorate, we need you to also recognize that you can be with the Democrats against the Republicans on certain things, but if the Democrats they're not, where we need them to be on certain positions, well, then you need to be able to speak out against them as well and bring them along to our positions, because our positions are popular, right? And it's like, everyone's like, you need to organize more, you need to do this and that. Well, I understand that. You always have to do that. But we've organized to the point where we've gotten 70% of the country to agree with Medicare for All, where we've gotten, majority of the people to agree with taxing the rich. All these things, like, so you have to use that leverage that you actually have now to push for those things. You have the public behind you. So it's okay if you're going to get ostracized by the corporate media or by the corporate Democrats. That's fine. Like FDR said, you should welcome that, right? And you saw that they tried to primary her, AOC, which she obviously beat the candidate that they propped up with millions of dollars by a mile. Like your seat is safe. Like so the whole like, oh, this is gonna be bad for her career thing, like that doesn't even bear out like in empirical data.
So you talked about how, going inside the Democratic Party, it's hard to say that you're gonna change that or reform it. But is a third party viable, or do we need more direct actions that lead to movement building around issues or policy rather than third parties? Or maybe we could use a little bit of both. I mean, at this point, who knows?
Yeah. At this point, I'm like, throw everything at the wall and see sticks. Because and I almost think of it from like a football perspective. Is like, okay, right now we're basically down by like 3 or 4 touchdowns. It's a really mountainous, hill we have to climb. So you can either just give up or you can keep fighting, right? So it's like my ideology is I'm going to fight at every turn I can. If that means supporting a third party, I'm going to support the third party. If that means pressuring progressives that are already in there who, generally agree with us on policy, okay, I'm going to do that. Like, we can do all these things. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can support strikes. We can support, like you said, direct actions, stuff like what's going on with Amazon, stuff like Healthcare LA, New York Health Act, whole Washington. We can support all those things. We can do all these things. It doesn't have to be one or the other. And when someone pigeonholes you into thinking, oh, you have to do this and you can't think about a third party, you can't criticize this person, this politician, like, to me, that's a red flag.
Yeah.
That's a red flag, because at this point, like, workers are so exploited. Poor people are so exploited in this country. It's like you can't really get that much worse. Like, we have a lot of room for improvement. So it's like, fight at every turn. Every opportunity you have, take on that fight. We have enough energy and enough people in this movement to actually, for all of us to take on different fights all at the same time.
Yeah. All right, let's get into the nitty gritty. I've been waiting to ask somebody this question for a long time, and I'm glad I got you here. So, I supported Colin Kaepernick's right to kneel. In fact, I have a shirt that says I'm a Jet fan, and I support Colin Kaepernick. But I supported it really due to the civil liberties issue, the fact that, you get paid to play football. You shouldn't be told that you have to give your allegiance to a flag or anything else like that. His actions were about recognizing police brutality and the oppression of people of color. However, he signed a multi-million-dollar contract with Nike, a company that has participated in some of the worst slave labor practices in Indochina. How come most of the athletes in professional sports don't see the hypocrisy by signing with these shoe companies? And furthermore, why don't you think that anybody hasn't stepped up and started an athletic gear company right here in the States to help out poor communities, like in Flint, Michigan?
Yeah, well, I think that's a great idea. And personally, I never thought about that. And I think it's obviously in our capitalistic system where you have Nike, Adidas, and Under Armour, who are like pretty much the 3 players. You have like New Balance, kind of, Jordan a little bit, but it's mostly those 3.
Yeah.
And just like pretty much every other sector, it's just, a few companies. So there goes your choice, right? There's like a few companies you get to pick from. So I think that's a great idea. I think there's a huge barrier to entry on that front, but I think that's something that I think Colin should start. I think he's got the capital and the means to do that, and I think that's something that he should do. As far as why he signs with Nike, I think Nike actually does a really good job of playing the both sides game. Because they do support a lot of like LGBT causes, and like you said, they were willing to sign Kaepernick and all that stuff. But when it comes down to they've made a judgment that doing that will be more profitable than not, right? They're a corporation, and this is what corporations do. It's all about profit motives and bottom lines. So I think people need to start realizing and seeing that. And I think the information is widely available, but people don't really seek that out because to them, a shoe company is very benevolent, right? It's not like a pharmaceutical company or like a weapons contractor. It's just a shoe company, right? It's just, it's just shoes. So I think we also have to do a better job of displaying that, speaking on that, speaking about that, and speaking out about that. Yeah. Now, I will say you can't, you literally, if you play in the NFL, you can't wear anything other than Nike, Adidas, or Under Armour. You get fined every single game. You get fined at like $5,000 or $10,000. So, you almost have to wear. Now, you don't have to sign a deal with them, but you almost have to wear one of those 3 cleats, which is unfortunate. But the NFL is a corporation and they have rules.
Yeah. No, I mean, listen, and that's something we've talked about all the time, because I know a lot of right-wingers now are bringing it up because of Colin Kaepernick, but I've said this for years. I haven't wore Nike in over 10 years because a guy by the name of Jim Keedy made a movie when he went over to Indochina and he saw the practices. In fact, one of the things I thought that was so disgusting, which Jim Keedy pointed out, was that a woman working in a factory in Laos, when she had her period and she needed a day off, she had to actually pull down her pants in front of her employer and show them the blood there. And I thought it was so disgusting. And I think a lot of people miss this, because I've said this is the opportunity. It should be the cap in Flint, Michigan. Let's do this. You know what I'm saying? I've only seen somebody kind of like, I forgot his name, Stefan Marbury, when he made cheap shoes and he didn't make a profit to give them to poor inner city children. That was awesome. But he still didn't do it the whole way. And I think a lot of times it could be very hypocritical when you see some people, they're kneeling for what's going on, and it's about oppression of poor people, you know what I'm saying, and people of color. And meanwhile, the shoe deals, and I know it's a quagmire too when the NFL makes you wear those things. And those three companies, they're the worst when it comes to slave labor practices. So I'm glad you pointed it out. Maybe down the road we can start the JJ, the Justin Jackson in Flint, Michigan. We should do it, because there are people there in that community. You know, Michael Moore pointed out they were starving and they wanted to do this, and they approached the Nike CEO and he said no. You know what I'm saying? So we'll look for that down the road.
For sure. And let me just mention too, that's why we need global worker solidarity too. You know what I mean? If you can recognize it here, that people are being exploited here, then you should be able to recognize it internationally. Just because they're in a different location on the earth doesn't mean that they're any less, valuable as a human being. So I think that's something we need to be speaking out about as well.
Absolutely. Good point. This next subject, we're a little split in the Convo Couch over here about, we talked about the situation, and I'm very curious to know how you feel. Malcolm Jenkins, he made that video blasting Drew Brees last season over his comments about kneeling during the national anthem. What's your opinion on the situation? I mean, did Jenkins go too far saying that Brees is part of the problem, or was he justified in making that video?
I'd say, I think that, to me, that is a criticism of liberal ideology, because even though he might not be a liberal, he's using his platform to be like, my religion or my love for the flag is kind of more overarching than your struggle and your your fight for freedom. So I would say, I think personally, when I saw it, I thought he was justified for his criticism, because after all these years, after everything that's going on, like that's what you come out and say. Like, I think that was just very tone deaf. But it also shows that even throughout all this educating that we've tried to do here in the Black community to our white brothers, or just other people who may not have actually experienced the same things that we have as Black people have experienced, even throughout all of that, we still need to do more. And that's frustrating. It's upsetting. But I also think that you have to do it. You have to call it out when you see it, even if it's someone you might love. And if you can actually do that, and now maybe Drew Brees actually does think the right way on it. Now he will use his platform to, support those causes, right? And it might have started right there. So you can't be uncomfortable having those conversations if they need to be had. So I don't know how y'all thought about it, but I thought it was justified. But you also have to back it up on the back end. If you're going to be calling people out for that, well, then you have to make sure you're doing everything you can to support those causes too, which I'm not 100% sure if he is. I have to do more research into that. Yeah. But, I hope he is.
Yeah. I just want to say that I think me too, I'm a little bit against the way Malcolm Jenkins did it. You know what I'm saying that he was part of the problem. And also I'm with the mindset that Malcolm Jenkins has that contract with Under Armour, right? You know what I'm saying? He has a deal with them. And one of the worst practices, again, against, oppressing people when it's Honduras, Salvador, Indochina. So I think that's why I said, and here's something too, Justin. I know when I fight with my mom and her family, we have this old school traditional Italian family. And if you talk against people who, died in war or whatnot, they look at that because of their empire education as being wrong. Now, I agree with actually Jenkins' argument that Drew Brees was being a little insensitive the way he started off saying, I will never agree with anybody disrespecting the flag, but that was his own personal opinion. And how do we get across to these people if we kind of demonize them and we say, you're part of the problem? That was the phrase that really bothered me when it came to what Malcolm Jenkins did. And like I said, he should be backing it up with not having contracts with people like Under Armour when they do what they do. So that's just my personal opinion, and I'll let the couch give their opinion because I just wanted to know your thoughts on this one.
We had a very, very divided opinion on this. I thought that Malcolm Jenkins did nothing wrong. I thought that his video was genuine, and he felt slighted by his teammate who he goes on the field. And Pasta describes this all the time. When you play football or sports, it's like they're your family, right? And like it felt like Brees was ignoring his plight, maybe not on purpose, but just like he doesn't know what the significance of that has to a black person. It just felt very, I agree, tone deaf. Like I felt like he was justified in that. And then after that, Brees actually apologized. And if he didn't do anything wrong, why would he apologize? It just felt to me like he was justified. And I think there's a difference between having a difference of opinion on your ideology as to what, if you think we should have big government or if you believe in healthcare for all and all of that, to there being a difference on somebody's experience and being able to listen to somebody's experience and acknowledging that experience. I think there needs to be more education. I agree that it is empire education, but I think a lot of white people do need to hear what the experience is of a black man who you will never understand. I mean, you know what I mean? So
no, and I agree. And I think I truly don't think that his intent was malicious.
Right.
But after, like I said, after all these years to peddle that trope of like it's disrespecting the flag, I think that probably is what set Malcolm Jenkins off. And I think he's justified in that. Now, like you were saying, Pasta, do I think he needs to back it up on the back end? Yeah, of course. I think we all need to do that. I don't think you can talk out of one side of your mouth and then go do something else behind the scenes. But I think in his criticism of the statement, now, whether you want to say, I've seen people say, personally, I'm going to stand for the flag, because I want to, but I support my brothers who, decide to take a knee. Like, that's all. That's it. That's all it takes. You know what I mean? You could, as an American, you have the right to do whatever you want, but so do they, right?
Yeah.
And that should, and I think it was frustrating because this was after 3 or 4 years, and during the BLM protests and everything, we've already been over this a lot. You know what I mean? And you're in a majority black city, like you can't be peddling that that talking point that's just been debunked so many times. And I think that's where the frustration set in. And I understand that.
I really, and that's the reason why I think I took a little bit of pushback when it came to Malcolm Jenkins's his statement, because Drew said, I will never agree with anybody disrespecting the flag. You know what I'm saying? And that's his own personal opinions and whatnot. I don't ever thought that he said you shouldn't kneel, because I think he made it clear that that's your right to kneel. That's my right to stand. This is the reason why I do that. And this is, even though it's like we're still talking about this thing, and this frustrates me, Justin, because we still say, do you think you should go to a lot of Trump supporters? Do you think you should go to jail for a year, the way Donald Trump said, for burning the American flag? And when they go, yes, they should, I'm like, what is wrong with you? Civil liberties right here. They have a right to burn their property. They're coming after you right now for the same thing. So it is a frustrating thing, but let me just say this much. It is a sensitive subject for a lot of older people out there who, from the empire education, living through World War II, they still look at that flag as something that it is really special, where I've been kind of like sitting back on the Pledge of Allegiance. I won't even stand half the time. You know what I'm saying? It's like, no, I'm not doing it. That's my beliefs. So it is one of those gray areas, and I do really appreciate your opinion on the whole situation.
Yeah, for sure.
I was going to ask you.
I wasn't expecting that question, so I'm like, I'm trying to remember, because I remember watching the video, and I remember after the reaction and my reaction, I know Shannon Sharp covered and everything, and I was like trying to remember. Yeah. But that was definitely a big moment. But I'm glad that he spoke his truth. He said what he felt. But I'm glad the way Drew Brees took it. I think he took it in stride. He took it on the chest, and And hopefully he changed for the better because of that. And I think that's what we need to do. We need to talk to each other. Yeah. We need to call each other out on our bullshit if that's what needs to happen. And I think he did that. And hopefully they're both better for it after.
I think the way we call each other out on the bullshit is important too as well. I mean, I just told Fiorella before, it's like I can't stand that thing when they say you're part of the problem. It's better than, hey man, I really think you're wrong on this, and it's been several years that you've been having this kind of sentiment. Listen what we're talking about. Look at this avenue. I just took a little offense to the way Malcolm Jenkins handled it. Maybe I'm wrong for looking at it and I don't see it the same way, but also the Under Armour contract too as well kind of weighs into the point where Malcolm, look what you're doing, walk the walk before you try to talk the talk. So,
I wanted to ask you, obviously white supremacy is an issue. And we know this. I think the vast majority of us on the left aren't saying that it's not. But right now, the insurrection is being used to amp up censorship and increase surveillance on people, right? Julian Assange is still in danger of extradition. Joe Biden has said he's going to continue to pursue his extradition. How do we convince the left, which is largely ignorant, either willfully or, unwillfully, how do we convince them that speech and press freedoms are so important for any issue we care about, whether it's, Black Lives Matter, Medicare for All, a stimulus, or anything that is actually something that we want to achieve?
I mean, you can just look at the empirical data. It's almost like you don't even have to, usually you're like, oh, this is going to come back to bite the left eventually. Like, no, it's happening now. It's already happening. There's always, if you allow censorship to happen on the right, there's always going to, the establishment, the people in power are going to want to silence dissent. If you allow them to silence dissent on the right, they're going to silence dissent on the left too. Yeah. So, I think you just have to show them the empirical data. I don't know how else. They should be principally against this, like I said, just off principle. But it's frustrating for me that there were some very progressive lefties calling for censorship as well.
Yeah.
And that's what's most scary to me, because it's like, if we don't have anyone in government pushing back against this, then we're really in a bad spot. So I think, like I said, you just need to kind of educate people. Like, look, the left is always the one that ends up getting the biggest, the most, I guess, the brunt of censorship, and then we're already seeing it. I guess weeks after they were calling for it. So
yeah,
just have to educate them on that.
And in your show, from what you spoke yesterday, I'm like, watch, they're going to censor this guy right here. There's no athlete talking this kind of stuff over here where he's calling out Cuomo and stuff like that. And I hope people take note of this and stuff, because the NFL is going to protect their product no matter what. So I'm fearful they're like, well, whoa. We were making jokes about it the other day. It's like, well, Woody Johnson for the Jets would love to sign Justin because he hates Cuomo, but I don't believe he has that sentiment. I believe he's going to have the opinion of like, wow, if this guy's going to speak out over here, who else is he going to speak out against? We got to silence him. So all eyes on you, my man.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah. I guess I'll find out when y'all find out.
Another issue, and I think this is the
two more questions.
Yeah, two more questions. Imperialism is a big part of capitalism, right? We were talking about Nike and what they do. It's extracting resources from other countries, and I think imperialism is inherently racist, right? An example right now would be the U.S. support of coups in Ecuador and Haiti. Much of the left largely ignores these issues, and many Americans understandably are barely able to look up. Like, they're so busy trying to work or not having a job or not having healthcare. But so much of our wealth goes into regime change and into the military industrial complex. How do we bring back this anti-war movement of the 60s and a focus on foreign policy relating to our domestic policy?
Man, that's a big question. I think we got to continue to use our platforms to speak out against it. And I think, to me, I always try and I like to use what happened during the BLM protest, because I was in LA, and I think I tweeted about this too. And I was like, well, of course, having National Guard on every corner, like it's frightening. It's like unnerving. You don't like that. It makes you feel, doesn't really make you feel safer inside. It makes the atmosphere. When there's someone on the corner with a freaking automatic machine gun that could mow you down in a second, it's just very unnerving. So I'm like, if we're not okay with this in our streets, then why should we be okay with doing that to other people in some country you don't even know where it is on the map, right?
Exactly.
And so I think I try and appeal to people's sentiments. Like, I know you wouldn't want this in your life and, on your corner in your neighborhood. So we shouldn't be pushing this on someone else who was just so happened to be born in a different country. But I think it's really tough because, like you said, voices who speak out against imperialism, speak out against, the prosecutions of journalists like Assange, like Snowden, like Chelsea Manning, they get silenced or they get shadow banned or they get, put on the 10th page of Google or stuff like that. So you almost have to speak out about it 10 times as much as you speak out about something else, just to get your point across or to be heard. So I think we just have to keep talking about what else can we do? We have to use our voices, use our bodies to actually put ourselves out there in the streets. Just like I said, I think it's one of those all hands on deck type approaches, because to me, it's a very, very important issue. I'm damn near a pacifist, I feel like. But it's something that, a huge reason why I didn't vote for Joe Biden. Why
Awesome.
I just will never support someone who is a warmonger. I just can't do it because
Awesome.
that feels like I'm endorsing and giving my support to someone who's terrorizing people around the world, and that's just not okay. I don't care what party you align with, or who you are.
Yeah. It's funny because the last question is going to kind of get into that because we've talked about this before. Last season, a lot of NFL players wore racial justice cleats, a lot of Breonna Taylor cleats, Black Lives Matter cleats. And we were wondering, since you're such a nuanced political guy, if you would consider wearing, I gave 4 choices of the messages you could wear on your cleats, and maybe you could consider wearing these for 1 week of the football season. Now, obviously, I would have liked to have cleats that say, end imperialism,
Right.
Abolish the CIA, defund the Pentagon, but we're not going to push you that far. So I came up with 4 different types of cleats. And I was wondering if, number one, we can make a tweet on this, maybe get some opinion from the Convo Couch. But here are the 4 that we're asking you to wear for 1 week, and just consider it. Number 1, end poverty. I think that would be great on the cleats, end poverty, because once again, we're focusing on the people upstairs to do something rather than just, the citizens, the way they behave with one another. Number 2, housing is a human right. Once again, another one. The third one, free Assange. Tough one, but if you could do it, that would be awesome. Or number 4, Medicare for All.
Yeah.
I don't know if the NFL will approve these right now, but if they're allowing political statements on cleats, maybe you can wear one of these 4. And which one would you like to wear the most of those 4?
Yeah, that's tough.
A lot of wows today, Justin.
I love these questions. Considering I'm in LA, I would love to wear housing is a human right, considering we have homeless people literally on every bridge, on every corner, almost every corner. So that's a huge one. Medicare for All, that's when I was actually, before y'all even said this, I was thinking about wearing that, because we can, they have to be approved. Of course, they have to be approved. So I'd have to send it in and they'd have to approve it. I mean, I could wear it. I'd lose $10,000 immediately. Probably worth it.
Maybe we can have a GoFundMe. $10,000 so you can wear free Assange on the sneakers.
Hey, give me a GoFundMe, what do you call it?
Crowdsourcing.
We'll crowdsource it. But no, I think that's a great idea. I was challenged a few times on Twitter. And that's one of those challenges I was like, you know what? I take that, and I think I will do something with that next year. So I'm glad y'all are challenging me on that front too. In the past, I've done Liberty Hill Foundation, I think, is who I did last year, and they do a lot of work in the LA community with Black and brown and poor and disadvantaged communities. So I did them last year, and I think 2 years ago I might have did like the Trevor Project or something, just for LGBTQ rights. So I'm happy to do something else next year, and I'll definitely be looking into that. Medicare for All, free Assange, housing and human right was the first one.
End poverty.
End poverty. Yeah. So, man, maybe I can slip all of them on there. So we'll see.
Would you mind if we made a tweet to see what the audience wants to do?
No, go ahead.
That is awesome. And I would also just, in closing, ask that you consider coming to the New York Jets. We have a new coach. It's a zone blocking scheme. It's a blown zone blocking scheme. We're going to get another offensive lineman there, and we're going to use your catching skills out of the backfield, Justin. So can you tell everybody?
I like New York.
Ah,
I like New York
Justin,
City.
we love you. I mean, really, to tell you the truth, I have been so excited since you've bursted on the scene. Some of the candidates you supported, I mean, you are really, really nuanced, and I think you're really putting yourself out there. I can't wait to see the impact you have on other football players around you with your voice for them to get deeper and look a little bit deeper. Would you like to tell everybody about your new podcast show and where they can find you?
Yeah, for sure. Well, first off, I appreciate y'all having me on. I love y'all's tweets. I'm always following what y'all are saying, watching the show. So I appreciate it. Yeah, I've got a new YouTube show. It's called The Takeover on YouTube. You can, if you go to my Twitter, J_Man_Prime, I think it's on the screen, 21. I've posted my first few vids. I'll be posting a few more videos today. Yeah, find me on YouTube at The Takeover. Really excited to, like you said, get it started. Hopefully make some waves. Hopefully change some minds. Grow the coalition, grow the movement, and keep pushing us forward. There's no time to wait. We need these things now. We need Medicare for all now. We need, we need to end poverty now. Housing needs to be a human right now.
Yeah.
We need to end imperialism right now. All these things can't wait. Because all the days that go by, we're waiting for these things to happen. There's real people's lives that it's affecting negatively. So that's why I'm in this fight. Glad to join y'all in the lefty independent media space. And hopefully I can come back on.
Yeah.
Of course, we'd love to have you on again. Thank you so much, Justin, for coming on. And everybody go follow his new podcast. That is fire. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thanks for taking the heat on the couch. We know we're not that. We don't ask the normal questions
we're-
here, but if you can handle us, you'll handle anybody.
Look. I play football in 100-degree weather in full pads with a helmet on. Okay, I can take the heat. I promise. I promise I can take the heat.
We love you, Justin. Thank you for coming on in.
All right, take care.
You got it.